Hey, it's Christian Buckley with another MVP Buzz Chat recording, and I'm here with Mark. Good afternoon.
Hey, Christian. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And Mark, for the folks that don't know you, why don't you give us a little introduction to who is this Mark guy and why is he stalking me or whatever it is that you're doing in your normal week?
Oh, you told me to show up, so I showed up. I just, I don't really have anything to say about myself. Okay, so anyway.
Good job. All right. Thank you, Mark. And we'll wrap that up. Yeah. No, introduce yourself.
So my name is Mark Rackley. I am a Offices Apps and Servers MVP. Been one for 5 years now. Been using SharePoint since 2007. When I first started out, I was known as the SharePoint Hillbilly. That was my blog URL. And, I didn't really think that all the way through. That kind of followed me through for years and years. I'd go to talk to people, introduce myself. I'd be like, hey, I'm Mark Rackley. They'll be like, who? And I'd be like, the SharePoint Hillbilly. They're like, oh, yeah, I know who you are. So,
well, there might be an extreme opinion on that, some of the SharePoint Hillbilly content, but you do a lot of jokey stuff on there. I mean, are you using that moniker at all anymore, or is it just kind of gone?
It's you'll see it as a side note sometimes, just as because I know some people still know me as that, but it's not the main point whatsoever. Like I think if you go to markrackley.net, which is my blog URL now, I think it may say there under as a tagline that I'm a hillbilly, but I don't ride that wave anymore. So I just
but you do live the lifestyle though.
Well, I live in Arkansas and I live in the Ozarks. I live on 4 acres off of a dirt road. So the way I tell people is I can pee off my front porch. So I think that constitutes me being a hillbilly still. So
that's awesome. I spent a few years just west of Lake Tahoe. So up in people that know Placerville, California, and out off a dirt road. And we had a few acres out there, and I miss that kind of lifestyle. I have to say that it was rough being a teenager without a vehicle out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, see, my kids, again, because the internet, when it came time to start driving, neither of them cared about it. I'm like, whatever, they didn't want to drive. So
yeah, that's my kids same way. But I mean, your kids had. I mean, I love some of the pictures and stuff. You guys are out ATVing or you're fishing or doing some other camping, hiking activities. So I love doing that kind of stuff. My kids are very much in the outdoors. But same thing. I think 3 of the 4 didn't get their driver's licenses until after they were 18.
Yeah. My daughter got hers when she was 17, my son when he was 18. So
yeah, I was driving my car that I had already purchased illegally before I was 16.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And not much out on the streets. It was mostly out on private property for the most part.
Well, in Arkansas, you can get what's called a hardship license. So you can legally start driving at 14. So
well, it's the same. If you're out in Placerville, the same. I knew folks that were able to they had farms, working farms, and so driving tractors, but other vehicles, and they were able to do the same thing. I think it was 15 in California. I don't know, it was a long time ago for me, so. But I think it was 15 where they were able to get their full license, but they were limited, and I think couldn't drive after dark or something.
Couldn't drive after dark. Can drive to school and back and to work and back. That's kind of the rules.
Well, this is all great information for people that are really passionate about SharePoint to know about, underage driving. So Mark, kind of what are your topics du jour? Like, what are you out there actively presenting on, talking about?
Well, I didn't finish telling you about myself either.
Oh, wait, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I got a lot more to go there. Yeah. So,
okay. For the next hour, what are we talking about?
Yeah, no. So I'm I'm a partner and the chief strategy officer for an Office 365 and SharePoint consulting firm called the PAIT Group. And my business partner is also a Microsoft MVP and a regional director. Her name's Stephanie Donahue. She's the brains of the operation. But we do work all over the country. I also organize a conference. It's called the North American Collaboration Summit. It's in Branson, Missouri. It's next April 2nd and 3rd. You've made it out there, right? I finally pulled you out there.
I did to the one, and I know you did the call for speakers for this next one, and I know it's different. I'm not that kind of consultant, and so it's a lot to kind of pack up and go to, especially that part of, how difficult it is to get from the Western U.S. to Arkansas.
However,
Atlanta through there,
But you can fly Frontier. So Frontier Airlines lands in Branson, and you can fly each way from Denver for like $30 each way. So
yeah,
it's an option.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Okay.
also have a podcast. It's called Tech Explaining, and that is a podcast I do with me and 3 other MVPs. We just kind of have conversations a lot like we're having right now, where we just go on all sorts of tangents and talk about the different types of technology and things we're working on. And finally, I guess something else about myself is that I created an InfoPath replacement tool called Stratusforms. It's a free client-side dev tool, and I wrote it because I cannot stand InfoPath.
All right. And I know that you got a little bit of flack from the campaign, which I participated in. Is, hey, it's the end of life. What's the campaign around end of
Say
life?
no to InfoPath.
Say no to InfoPath. So
Yes.
I have to put a link to the video as well in the blog post. But,
Yeah, so I got a bunch of people to just get on there. You sent me a video saying, stop using InfoPath, and yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
that's great stuff. Well, I know that it's something too. It's like it feels like almost every year, the last few times with your event with ECS that. Well, that's the European one. So the North American Collaboration Summit.
NACS.
NACS is that you're like, I think this is the last one, and yet you keep doing it.
That's not true. I haven't said that in 2 years.
Okay.
So for the longest time, it was actually called SharePoint-alooza at one point because it's a 2-day conference. I'd bring in a live band for live music, and it's something that it's so much work. And every time you reach out and say, "Hey, people, you want to help?" And they're like, "Yeah, I want to help." And I'll be like, "Here's what I need help with." And I'm like, "Ooh, I don't want to do that." So it ends up being me doing a lot of work. And so it was always a push to the end to get the money, to get the attendees, to get the sponsors. And I was always too overwhelmed. I'm like, I'm never doing it again. But the last 2 years, I figured it out. I know I've got core attendees, I've got core sponsors, I've got my costs down. So it makes it a lot easier, and that stress level is way down. So
Yeah, it's funny. Like we're getting ready to do our 10th SharePoint Saturday Utah. We're actually rebranding as 365 Friday, moving it to Friday and doing workshops on Saturday. So we still have we're going to be doing a 2-day format. But but people would be like, "Wow, it's so well run." It's like, yeah, because it's pretty much the core team that's been running these for 10 years. So it's hard, especially starting in a new area, putting together that core team so that you're not one individual is not having to do everything.
yeah, I mean, I've got some great helpers. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to Stephanie and Jason Himmelstein and Stacy Burst does a lot of help with me, and Sue Hanley does a lot. So I mean, I've got people that help. It's just that that the nitty gritty things that people just don't like to do, it ends up falling on me.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're Mr. Personality and make the big bucks. So that's right.
Yeah, I don't know what you heard, but
so over to the topics. So what are you out there like actively presenting on now? Because one other thing about PAIT Group too, I did mention is so you guys are part of in the latest round of the Microsoft the Business Application Partners program as well.
That is right. We're part of we're one of the I guess the second round or is the first round?
Second wave. No, you guys are the second wave. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the second wave of partners for that. So we're starting to do more and more with Power Apps and Flow and doing business applications for clients. As a company, we do a lot of deployment planning, a lot of strategy, a lot of helping customers get to the cloud, a lot of helping them re-architect their sites, and along with that, a lot of development of business processes and business applications. So.
Well, I always like to ask this question because you're out there, on a regular basis, and in those planning activities. I mean, what are the patterns that you see? What are every customer thinks that their problems are unique, and then you go in and you're like, no, yeah, like every client asks these same questions or has these kinds of issues. Kind of, what are the patterns that you're seeing with?
Well, you're right. They all think they're different, and they're all the same mess. I hope none of my clients are listening to this, but you guys are great.
Like a generic statement out there, and we'll have like a quick scroll of every customer. Yeah. They're all great.
They're all fantastic. And I love you. The things we find, everybody has a mess of file share, right? Everybody has just the most horrendous file shares with the most horrendous folder structure with duplicated files everywhere, and that's always like they're always concerned that they're unique and how messed up they are with their file shares. The really complicated site structures, the overuse of links everywhere, people who over-customize SharePoint, and there's just no way they're going to be able to take it all over into SharePoint Online because of their server-side solutions or because it won't work with modern. All that stuff we see across the board happening all over the place in the silos between organizations. So it's pretty intense. Probably The thing, though, that keeps us really busy these days, and you will be absolutely shocked by this, is people freaked out by teams. Freaked out by team sprawl, freaked out by how they're going to govern teams, how are they going to stop users from just creating all these teams. The first thing most people are doing these days is just shutting teams down until they can figure it out. But that is what we spend a lot of our time on, is just education about security, compliance, governance, how you can do this and still let people actually go out there and create their teams without creating bottlenecks for them.
Well, but that's so that's the thing about teams, is that it's not entirely unfounded, a lot of the concerns. Of course, they're applying the old way, the old architecture of all of their solutions to how team acts. But the reality is that you create a group. It's creating all of those assets. And so there you do have, and I would argue that Microsoft is still a bit light on the organization of a lot of those pieces, the oversight of those. You don't have the granular control that you have when you own your own SharePoint farm and are building that out and controlling the provisioning process. And so, I mean, how do you have that conversation? What's your message for clients around that?
Well, so the way I talk about teams is, like, for years with SharePoint, everybody always talked about governance, right? Everybody talked about having a governance plan. Everybody talked about, and they even maybe have it set up a governance committee to get a governance plan. But how many of those people actually went back to that governance document or enforced their governance policies? About 2% maybe, right? I mean, it never happened.
That's high. It's like an open rate for an email campaign. It's like
exactly
4%. Yes. Yeah.
With teams, that's a requirement. You've got to take the time to actually learn about the tool, learn about the capabilities, learn about how you're going to maintain it, train your users on what they should be doing, create a real governance policy, have tools in place to monitor this stuff so that you can get ahead of it. And maybe you do have some rules about who can create teams and who can't, and what policies are you going to put in place, or so it takes more work. I mean, you have to do that governance stuff now. It's no longer an option.
Well, it's my first thought when they announced the like being able to go in and, as part of the provisioning process, and be able to, for example, go build kind of a customized onboarding provisioning process that IT can be the kind of the gate holders, the gating factor for anybody who wants to go and create a new team. That's fine. Go through, fill it out, ask them some key questions about what they're doing, and based on their response, maybe have a provisioning a standard template for the type of site. If it's a project-based site versus a longer initiative versus a corporate, everybody's in it company-wide. I mean, just generically, those are three primary project types that you might go and create, and you can now go in and customize the templates and provision and make so that it's even creating multiple, not just the one-off SharePoint team site where it might automatically add a tab that has a link to a centralized SharePoint, like a shared services team or a project management hub or something like that. Yep. So you can really be specific and granular about what people get with that versus just the generic, hey, anybody can create a team. And then it really is just creating every one of those associated assets.
Well, and this is where the education piece comes in, because there's a ton of things you can do. So education becomes absolutely critical with teams. So.
And I'm sure you're still getting that question, the famous now, which tool do I use when?
That's the question that, everybody gets. And Teams didn't help with that. And with Yammer and Teams, and then Kaizala kind of sitting out there, it's just like, it's a conversation we have to have every time. And the answer is always, it depends, but we're seeing less and less. I don't know if you're seeing this as well, but we're seeing less and less and less adoption of Yammer right now.
Because I've always been, I'm a Yammer fan of specific use cases. And so like I just did for the virtual summit, the Collab 365 guys, I just did my session on building a modern extranet. And so I was talking about external sharing and extranets, and going from a single user trying to collaborate with an individual. Here's what email looks like. Here's OneDrive. Here's Yammer. Here's Teams. This is SharePoint. And then there at the very top of that scale, there's the full-blown extranet. You have all of these different options all along the way that give you that fill different needs. And Yammer is excellent for some of those use cases, but and for most of the way that people were using Yammer, I mean, Teams is actually a better fit.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I agree.
So it's, yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of clients that are one or the other. I think, Microsoft's answer has been for years now, and it's frustrating for people that are like, Microsoft, tell us the right way to do this thing that we're trying to do. And Microsoft's answer has been, there's multiple ways that you can do the thing that you're trying to do. What's the right fit for your organization, for your culture, and which is great and visionary to be able to say that, like, hey, there's multiple ways to solve any problem. But when there are different back end, on the back end, it's all different things. And so the decisions you make have these huge consequences about management of assets and, all those kinds of things. And it becomes less and less of an issue when eventually now SharePoint's on the back end of everything, and the graph gets hold and it reads everything. So eventually you'll be able to go to a search and be able to find a conversation that happened in Yammer or in Teams or in whatever a chat that happened in a Word doc or a PowerPoint that's tied to the document itself.
And that's going to freak out the executives, right? They're going to go in there and search for something, and they're going to see a conversation that they had, and they're going to think that everybody in the company can see that conversation, and that happens all the time too. So that's a fun conversation.
Well, that was a wave that happened too with SharePoint 2010. While I was still at Microsoft, we saw that happen where people are saying, well, SharePoint search is broken. No, what happened is that it started working better out of the box, and it was identifying that people had been very sloppy with the protection of sensitive information with content. And so, yeah, when you understand how that's, hey, I do a search and it's pulling up those things which maybe only I can see, and that's why they're coming up in my search results. But you go and search in the same environment, if you don't have the permissions to that, you're not going to get the same results.
Right. And this is where education comes in again, because people thinking if I search for it and see it, that means everybody can search for it and see it, which is it's just not the case. But it's one of the things we have to fight.
Often not the case.
It's like the email we get in Teams where, all of a sudden you get an email saying so-and-so is trying to get in touch with you. We have clients that freak out because an executive will start playing with Teams and they'll put a message out in Teams. And all of a sudden some peon on the warehouse floor gets an email saying the CEO is trying to get in touch with you. And they freak out. Oh my gosh, what did I do? I've got to figure out what he wants. He'll send emails. I'm so sorry. What did I do? And it's like, no, that's just a notification that Teams sends that he posted a message. Yeah. So that's something I would like to change about Teams, by the way, that I would like to get rid of that message.
Yeah, there's I have notifications turned off, and every time I log into it, it's prompting, do you want to turn notifications on? No, I do not. Yeah, there's I don't know, how much are you running into the questions around multi-tenant? I mean, they've fixed some of the issues if you're logged in to your primary Teams experience and are moving between, guest tenants, that's relatively easy. But for those of us, especially consultants, where we have logins to multiple customers and have to manage, across multiple tenants, it's just kind of a pain.
It's more than a pain. It's impossible. It's untenable. You're not getting those notifications then because, I basically I tell my clients, look, you need to allow guest access, and you need to add my PAIT Group account to that guest access so that I can get those notifications. If you really won't do that, we'll do it, but you're going to have to email me and let me know when you need to get a hold of me, because I'm not monitoring that Teams. I'm not getting push notifications from that team. Sorry.
Right. Well, yeah, that's that seems like every couple of days I'm having that battle with one or another, this client, as we were talking about before we started recording, where it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But it's
not my clients. I love my clients.
Yeah. Love my clients too, Mark. Come on. Yeah, but it's just like siblings. So I'm the second oldest of 10 kids. And when you have that many siblings, yes, I have favorites. So.
Oh yeah, I've got 2 kids and I have a favorite. I'm just kidding. They're probably listening to that. I love you both the same.
I'm telling. I I met your kids. I'm going to tell them you said that. Yeah. Well, so what are you out there actively presenting on? Kind of what are your hot topics these days?
So the hot topics these days, I'm starting to do more with bots. I do see that is going to be a continued growing piece of technology that is becoming more and more, which I'm looking for, that's the barrier to entry is getting lower and lower to get started with cognitive services and bots. There's a lot of cool things you can do with it. So I've got some sessions and workshops that I do on that. I'm doing some diversity and tech stuff at the next Ignite. So that's kind of a growing space right now. And I think it's actually kind of exciting, especially since I have a daughter who's really into math and sciences. I think it's great to see that that's really becoming, they're knocking down walls there for getting people involved in technology. Again, a lot of stuff about adopting adopting the modern SharePoint, adopting Office 365, a lot of talking about planning around that. Still doing my client-side dev talks. I do a lot of introduction development stuff for SharePoint framework, doing the graph in SharePoint framework, and that sort of stuff. So that's anywhere from client-side development to planning, governance, diversity in tech, and cognitive services and bots.
So basically everything. So the broad topics of kind of all the stuff that everybody anywhere in the world is talking about around Office 365, you cover that.
I'm the one-stop shop for everything Office 365 related.
Well, that's cool stuff. And yeah, I noticed that just on the D&I topic, because was working with Microsoft for almost 2 years on this project, and we had this partner research that went live out, which you could go out to diversity.collabtalk.com and find that free report.
This show is supposed to be about me, not you.
I know, but what I was noticing about a lot of the community folks that got accepted to speak at Ignite, so there's a lot of those, to say softer topics. I mean, these are critical for all of our careers in just modern business and especially in technology, as you point out. These are important topics, and it's great to see the variety of topics that got picked up from community speakers for this event. So looking forward to being in Orlando again for Ignite.
Yeah, Stephanie and I are doing an unconference on Wednesday in Orlando with Ann Michaels on Parents in Tech. So like Ann Michaels has a newborn. Stephanie has kids in middle school.
And she's already worried about technology with her newborn there?
How can you be a parent? Yeah, it's important stuff to get ahead of. And I've got both my kids that just got out of the house. So we, it has some unique perspectives there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not thinking about that stuff anymore. I'm an empty nester now. So, they're on their own. So
I'm an early empty nester. My daughter is a junior in high school, but she decided she wanted to go to a public boarding school. So.
Well, she really wanted to get away. Wow.
Well, so Arkansas has this school called the Arkansas School for Math and Sciences. It is a public school, but it's for, gifted kids. You have to apply. You have to take tests. They only take a couple hundred a year. It's a public school, but you have to live on campus. And it's like, 3.5 hours away from home in Hot Springs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we went there for the parent orientation. I went up to all the kids and I asked them, I said, all right, you can tell me, where is the Chamber of Secrets? You can tell me, it's okay. But they wouldn't tell me.
Did she, what house did she get into? I mean, she's not part of Slytherin, is she?
Oh, I hope not. No, the Sorting Hat did not put her there. But no, but it's a girls and boys dorm. She's known about it for 3 years. It became her dream to go there. So she buckled down, applied, took the test, and got in. So
yeah, that's very
super
cool.
Proud of her. But it's a little bit lonely in the house now.
No, my daughter, my oldest, is also a STEM kid. So she was a microbiology major, and so now she just had. I think you saw this. My first grandchild was born 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
So yeah, so now I was going to make a joke about how we're not talking about technology with him. We're just sharing videos back and forth of him making faces while he's pooping.
Nice.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
I do the same thing with my kids, but just not as cute.
It's just, it's a little uncomfortable. It's a bit awkward now, but Yeah, well, anyway, hey, Mark, I really appreciate your time talking. People want to find you, follow you. What's the best ways? Where are you most active? Where can they find you online?
So blog post, markrackley.net. Follow me on Twitter, mrackley. If I don't know you, I'm not going to add you to Facebook, so don't try to add me. LinkedIn, I'm Mark Rackley there. So email, you want to get to hold me for like any of this stuff, is mrackley@paitgroup.com. Podcast is techsplaining.net. Stratusforms is stratusforms.com. And don't forget to come to the North American Collaboration Summit next April 2nd and 3rd in Branson, and that is collabsummit.org. So there's about 4 billion different ways to get a hold of me if you really want to.
I have to say that is a great conference to get to. It is besides just being in the middle of, for the coming from the coast, being a bit more remote of an area. I mean, it is just an awesome venue there. Are you going to do the band again down by the river? Like, I didn't get to see that part.
So last year it was too cold to have the band on the river. So we had the band where we had the speaker party. There's a restaurant called the Paddle Wheel. It's an old paddle boat. We had band, music, food, drinks. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's a 2-day conference. Early bird registration is going on right now. So for $100, you can go to the conference. So that's going to be up for the next month or two, or, I'm guessing for whenever you post this, but
awesome event. And if you can make it and spend a little extra time there, there's plenty to do for other family members as well while you're doing the tech thing. So it's in fact, my regret was not going and buying a bunch of fishing gear there, walking down across the street at what is that giant Bass Fishing Pro?
Bass Pro Shops. Yeah. So there's a Bass Pro Shops there on the Branson. It's held at a place called Branson Landing. Check it out online. It's Branson Landing is a really cool place with shops and.
Yeah, you're walking down. It has the music playing, so it's like being at Disneyland or something. Just you're walking down through, like, hey, that's all right. So.
And it's got the fire and water fountains too, like like the Bellagio. So it's like it's like Vegas, only not.
I know. I just bought like my 5 pounds of chocolate caramel stuff and gnawed on that brick on the way home. Shared a little bit with the family, but most of it I ingested. So it was good stuff.
Cool. Well, hopefully you'll make it back out someday.
Yeah, hope to make it out there. So Mark, hey, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks for having me.